Hi there, we'll take a closer look at the Christmas weather in just a few moments, but first, well, it continues to be very wet, of course, a very wet autumn, and indeed December continuing in a similar fashion. These were the scenes from Ed on Twitter across Norfolk just over a week ago or so, and it shows so much flooding across the fields, and it's not just here in East Anglia, but also elsewhere across parts of the UK, the Midlands, Northern England. It's just been a very difficult season for lifting potatoes and sugar beet out of the ground, and there's no real let up in sight. It's still looking pretty unsettled actually for the next few days, and it's all thanks to, of course, to a very active jet stream. We're starting off this week on Wednesday here with an upper trough actually over the UK. See the way the jet stream dips down, that's what we call a trough. Within that, a lot of cold air in the upper atmosphere, and that promotes showers. So it's going to be quite a showery day on Wednesday, but it doesn't take long before another active piece of jet stream comes in, and really this is going to drive multiple areas of low pressure across the Atlantic towards the UK over the next few days. Notice though, by the end of the weekend, a bit more of a larger scale trough developing to the west, and that dig down might allow something a bit milder to come back up ahead of it, heading further on into next week, but more on that in just a few moments. But for Wednesday, this is how things look first thing. Relatively quiet across eastern parts of the UK, but it won't take long really before the showers out west will push their way further eastward, sometimes organised into a more organised area of showery rain at times. Some winteriness across some of the hills, across central and northern parts of the UK in particular, and again some isobars, so it's quite breezy, not as windy as it has been over the last few days, but still a fairly blustery affair, still making it difficult if you're trying to get spraying done, for example. Then on through Wednesday night into Thursday, the next area of low pressure driving its way in, quite a deep area of low pressure as well. So again, a lot of isobars, quite windy on Thursday, rain for most of us working its way gradually eastwards across the country. And there could well be a spell of significant snow for a time across the Pennines into the Scottish Highlands, for example. Something to bear in mind, I think, as we head further on into Thursday as well. Now, beyond that, things get a little bit more uncertain. The low pressure looks like it will drive its way across the UK and then park up somewhere over the North Sea by Friday. So we're left with a northwesterly flow, a chilly direction, of course, and that'll feed quite a few showers in at times, perhaps even some longer spells of rain clipping these northern eastern parts of the UK on Friday as well. By the weekend, well, don't take the detail literally because things will chop and change between now and then, but the idea is it's going to be quite windy, hence all these isobars, and we'll have further bands of showers or longer spells of rain pushing through at times as these multiple areas of low pressure all dumbbell and rotate around each other through the weekend as well. So quite an unsettled weekend, but I will stress it won't be raining all weekend. There will still be some dry weather in between because we'll have these ridges coming through at times to give us some relatively quiet weather with the risk of frost at night before the next area of rain starts coming in from the west. So if you're looking at the forecast on your apps or on websites or indeed on TV, the detail for the weekend will probably change a bit between now and then because it's all about resolving these various features and what time they'll come through and how widespread the rain will be with that as well. So likely to change a little bit. Now into the early part of next week, this is the overall sort of pattern we're expecting. To start the week, low pressure to the northwest of the UK, so still close enough to keep it unsettled. But notice the isobar is a lot wider space. They're still there, still a bit of a breeze, but not as windy. And it's quite likely things may become somewhat slack for the beginning of next week, which is good news if you're trying to do some spraying. The winds will be lighter. But also we have to bear in mind, with weather fronts coming through and then not much wind to push them on, they can sometimes stall across France, for example, and occasionally push some rain back into that southeast corner. So that's something we're keeping an eye on for Monday. A bit of uncertainty about how that may play out. But in between these fronts and the showers near the west coast, inland, there could be some reasonable dry weather as well. So although the pattern is unsettled looking, there should still be some dry weather here and there, particularly perhaps on Tuesday with a little bit more in the way of ridging for a time. Then towards the middle part of next week, big dartboard low over the Atlantic, a very deep and very large area of low pressure is likely to develop. But in doing so, notice the wind direction now is coming out from the subtropics of the Atlantic, pushing up from the southwest across the UK. That is a change of air mass. So while it's been quite cold and unsettled over the last week or so, it's likely the second half of next week, despite being wet and quite windy, will actually turn less cold. It's more of a milder southwesterly flow, especially across southern areas, so temperatures will actually recover here. Notice though, there will still be the risk of some snow across the hills of northern Britain. But again, at low levels further south, not a great deal of snow risk showing up over the next few days or so. So to look at that in a little bit more detail, we use ensembles. This is just one example of them, and each line here is a different computer model. There's about 50 of them on this graph. If you want to know more about ensemble forecasting, what they result in, how they help us forecast, then just click up here and there'll be a link there to one of our explainers we've recorded for you. But what this shows for Birmingham, this is the mean wind speed over the next 10 days or so, and clearly quite a windy spell of weather here through to the end of this week. But notice the early part of next week, the wind speeds start to come down. There's still quite a bit of spread, but the overall trend here, the red line is the average of all of these grey lines, showing lighter winds in general for the beginning of next week. Not completely light, there'll still be some breezy conditions at times, but if you are trying to do some spraying, there is some signs of things improving in that respect during the early part of next week. And then later on, notice the winds come back up again, so likely to turn quite windy again from about midweek onwards. In terms of rainfall versus evaporation, of course, at this time of the year in December, the sun is at its weakest, so evaporation rates tend to be very small, and actually rain just continues then to build up, and it takes some time really to drain away. And this is what this is showing also for Birmingham. It's the rainfall versus evaporation. And what you'll see here from now through to 10 days time, there's likely to be another inch or so of rain, an inch or so of extra moisture in the ground compared to what we have right now. Just highlighting really the unsettled flavour continuing. Bit more of a lull. Notice this red line, the average, is more sort of flat line here. There's no massive spikes upwards. So it's likely to be wet for the next few days, perhaps a little bit less wet by the beginning of next week, but still the risk of some showers. And then that starts to come back up again midweek onwards with the next area of low pressure coming in from the Atlantic. So lots to look at, a lot of detail there and lots going on in the weather as well. And you can see all of this information by signing up to a Weatherquest portal. There's a free 2-week trial. We have the full 5 and 7 day forecast for your location. There's also things like jet stream animations, the probability of different thresholds for each weather variable, as you can see here for temperature, for example, and this monthly video, but in much more detail, all available on the Weatherquest portal. If you're interested in signing up for that 2-week trial, then just send us an email to info@weatherquest.co.uk and we'll set you up an account and show you how to use the portal and what we have on offer. Looking at the bigger picture then for Europe for the week 2 period. So this is taking us through the 16th to the 22nd of December. The blues here indicating lower than normal pressure, and that's very dominant across much of northern and Western Europe. Notice though higher than normal pressure down towards the southeast, and that with more of a flow off the Mediterranean is actually going to bring a widespread area of above average temperatures. So significantly above average for the time of the year across Eastern Europe, Western Russia, even down across some parts of the Med as well. And that also includes parts of the south of the UK as well. From midweek onwards, temperatures will be back into the teens. Perhaps the mild air might not quite get all the way to the north of the UK, and hence that sort of blue shading across Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland, where temperatures may remain near or below average in places as well. And with high pressure dominating in the southeast, very dry conditions here compared to further west, where we've got weather fronts and rain and showers, above average rainfall likely across Western Europe. Now for Christmas week, looks like high pressure will start to become a little bit more dominant from the Azores across the southwest of Europe. Equally, that high pressure across the southeast weakening a little bit, but also extending just a tad further north at the same time. And notice the areas of low pressure just pushed a little bit further towards the northwest. So the storm track's a little bit further north. And at the moment, it looks like the milder than average conditions will prevail quite strongly across Eastern Europe during Christmas week. No massive signal here for above or below average temperatures, just sort of near normal across western parts of Europe. And in terms of rainfall, well, again, with high pressure across the east, it's quite dry conditions, below average for many places, still above average across parts of the UK, but the signal is less strong than it is right now or indeed for the coming weeks. So signs are perhaps towards Christmas, maybe just after, things may settle down a little bit, less wet, shall we say, rather than completely dry, with some longer, drier gaps in between each area of low pressure. And then heading into the new year, it's likely that low pressure will start to become a bit more dominant across the northern half of Europe, driving into Eastern Europe as well. That high pressure, though, still towards the southwest, so it's a bit of a battle, really, between how much this influences the UK versus those areas of low pressure driving down the North Sea and into Scandinavia. There's a bit of uncertainty in that respect. Again, though, temperatures still signal to be above average across eastern parts of Europe, whereas we're near normal across Western Europe, but actually no real sign of any major cold weather showing up at the moment. And in general, rainfall near or below average across Western Europe, whereas central, eastern and northern areas, we've got above average rainfall here. And again, there will be quite a bit of snow, I suspect, on the mountains as well during this period. So to summarise the next 4 weeks or so across the UK, well, it's pretty unsettled really for the next couple of weeks at least, with some strong winds at times. There'll be some rain or showers on many days as well, and any ridges will tend to be quite brief. Again, some snow on the hills in the north in particular, and there will be some occasional overnight frost where we get those clear skies and the winds just ease down a tad between each area of low pressure. It does, though, look milder across southern parts of the UK from midweek onwards next week. So things just turning a bit less cold here, but still fairly chilly in the north. And then, as I say, just a hint at the moment that there may be something a little bit more settled towards Christmas, but confidence at the moment in that is a little bit on the low side. And in terms of Christmas itself, we had a look at this last week. This is how things are shaping up this week with the latest ensemble data. So on the left here, we've got the percent chance of temperatures being above average by 2.5 degrees. And on the right, we've got the percent chance of temperatures being below average by 2.5 degrees. And this is for the 3-day period of Christmas Eve to Boxing Day averaged altogether. And you can see across the UK, it's almost a 50-50 split, with this green shading on both of the maps here, indicating there's no real strong signal either way for above or below average temperatures for this Christmas period. But actually across Central and Eastern Europe, a very strong signal for above average temperatures here compared to the much lower signal in the below average scenario as well. Again, I will stress it doesn't mean it will be mild, but odds are that it will probably be mild across Central and Eastern parts of Europe. But we also have to bear in mind there are still some members going for below average, given that it's still 2 weeks away at the moment. So quite a bit going on as ever. It's always chopping and changing, and you can keep up to date with the latest forecast by following us on social media.